So hello, everyone. I am Bridget, and I'm really thrilled to be up here with these awesome panelists who I met only recently, but I'm very excited to stay in touch. I think they're just each exceptional at what they do and for the companies they work for. So I'd like them to first just introduce themselves and give a bit of sense for your scope at your respective companies. Peter?
Okay. Hello everyone, Piotr Kozłowski with Komar. I lead the Precis consulting team responsible for our loyalty platform offering. So some of the programs which are here in the room are backed by our core technology. And yeah, as part of the panel relation, I mean we support a number of the co-brand partnerships from a back-end perspective. So glad to exchange thoughts here.
My name is Carissa Rawson. I am the Director of Travel and Marketing at Rove. For anybody who's not aware, Rove is a transferable point currency that is not locked behind a credit card. So we are basically granting access to transferable rewards to 100 million plus people in America that didn't have it before.
I'm Peter Shinazi. I'm the Director of Loyalty at Air France KLM. I'm based in New York City. And I hold sort of two roles at the airline. The first is, well, we're here in a region for Air France KLM, so we sell tickets from North America to Amsterdam and Paris and beyond. And the second is the mileage income that we earn from our bank card products, and that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Indeed. So we're going to talk about more than co-brand. I mean, there's a lot of ways that these transfers are happening, and certainly look forward to Rove, who currently does not have a co-brand card, and yet they're very active in the transfer points space. And really, if you think about it, it's a bit of a kabuki dance if you're going to really do this right for your brand on allowing folks to get into your currency, build up the value of their currency on the back of your currency, and how is it that you balance it so it's optimized not just today, tomorrow, but for a very long time. So it's a lot to think about. So what I'd like Peter, if you would please start on the why of the commercial reasons you do this, have transfer programs.
Yeah. Okay. So the why. Why does Air France KLM participate in these programs and have a co-brand? And I guess I'll talk about this from a North America perspective. So we're obviously a global business. We're actually, for those who don't know, a 30 billion euro business. We're actually the sixth largest airline group in the world. But when we think about the airline from this marketplace, we're a bit of a challenger brand, really. Unlike United, American, Delta, we don't have as much market power here. We do partner, we're in SkyTeam, we partner with Delta, arguably one of the leading brands in the business. They lead for Air France KLM in terms of distribution and sales and revenue management here for this market, but we do run our own loyalty program. So the why, a lot of this is around economics, and I could talk about sort of what those economics look like for us in a bit, and a bit of brand as well.
Okay, so all of those are net positives as you think about what could be cannibalization into your direct co-brand revenue.
Yeah, so let me maybe just take a rewind back and just talk a bit more conceptually. So the Air France KLM group has a separate mileage business. It's Flying Blue Miles, and this is all public information, but it's around $1 billion business. Now, you have to understand that we are, of course, headquartered in Europe. The economics for these kinds of co-brand programs look a lot different in Europe. And if you even think about the European consumer, and actually the French in particular, they're just not credit-hungry people. I could talk about the French. We should probably have a session around the French, maybe in this group at some point. But before I step too far into that, they're a very different breed. So you would not see a French person signing up for multiple credit cards. They do have banking relationships, but it just looks a lot different. The truth of the matter is most of our mileage revenue is generated from this market, from North America. So, I mean, the economics are plain and simple for us because the economics are here. We participate in each and every bank transfer program there is. These programs bring an awful lot of value to us. They bring visibility. They bring growth. These brands are bringing in lots of new customers for us, customers with high intent to travel, points and miles, aficionados, I don't know what you want to call it, passport-ready, high net worth individuals who are ready to transfer and ready to fly. So yeah, is it dilutionary to our co-brand? I think the answer to that is not from where we sit. We do have a co-brand product. It's very important to us. It's very important to our market strategy here. But no, this is really purely about economics.
Okay, so this seems to me, kind of given your size, the way to optimize is to have the transfer programs. That the direct co-brand just wouldn't be on a path to get to the €1 billion, for example.
That's safe to say.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. So, Chris, I think it's just help the audience know a little bit about the Rove currency just outright, and then talk about your involvement as a company with transfer programs.
Yeah, so like I said, Rove is a transferable reward that is not locked behind a credit card. The reasoning behind that, when Rove was first ideated, we did in fact consider ourselves like the Gen Z credit card that was coming. But after some more research, and we kind of understood that it's not about creating a credit card that is applicable to the youth, to Gen Z, to those who, because we have a lot of credit cards. We have a lot of existing, we've got student credit cards and things like that. We want to target people who just are fee averse, who don't have an existing credit history. And so we're not ever going to be involved in any sort of co-branded credit card, at all. No plans to issue it at all. What that lets us do is it lets us gather quite a few more transfer partners than we would otherwise, because we are not subject to any sort of exclusivity issues. We're not trying to compete with Amex, for example, with Delta. Like, we're not, and it works out really well. And you can see that in Rove, in that we launched, a few months ago, and we've already got 12 transfer partners, hotel and airline. And we've seen really, really huge success just by eliminating that barrier to entry with our customers. We've got already over 100,000 users in Rove.
So you can earn Rove currency by booking airfare and hotels and various retail partners.
Yes.
And you can use those to purchase airfares.
So it's a little bit more than that. So currently, the way that you earn Rove miles, there are sort of 3 different ways that you can do it. The first is that you can book flights through our platform. The second and the most lucrative way for the general customer is by booking hotels on our platform, because unlike other sort of hotel booking platforms, we don't hold back any of the commissions. So whatever the hotel gives us is what we give our customers. And that ends up meaning that we're blowing everybody else out of the water when it comes to the rewards that you're earning. Officially, we say you can get up to 25x back in Rove miles, and the fact that you can then transfer those at a 1-to-1 ratio to partners like Flying Blue, when you compare that to everybody else that Flying Blue partners with, who's trying to book hotels, we really do blow them out of the water. And we also have an online shopping platform. We've got 13,000 stores on there. And we have a Chrome extension that works with that, but we're also about to launch card-linked offers, which is a fantastic feature. And essentially what we're going to be doing is we are going to have, as long as you've got your credit or debit card linked to your account, you can be in person or online, no need to activate wherever you're going. You just automatically find Rove miles in your account once you're done.
So 1 to 10, how clutch is transferable points to your business model?
Well, we call ourselves the first universal airline mile. We can exist as a travel platform without having transferable rewards, but that is, I think, our key differentiator, right, is that we are providing access to that without needing the credit card. So we could exist, but then we would be competing with the likes of Expedia and Priceline.
So, Peter, as we hear the explanations about Air France and Rove, who I would suggest relative to a lot of other players in this space that have transfer programs that have a co-brand, a first order accrual of the currency that's very, very strong, certainly here in the United States. Travel partners, we heard from Luke, we've heard from Eric from Delta, we've heard from very intrinsically, deeply valued loyalty currencies who also have a transfer program that, I don't pretend to know how they optimize, but the risk profile may be different. What have you seen as someone who is enabling these types of programs, and any sort of hiccups or things that could have gone better, and how might that be redirected?
Yeah, I think it's a whenever we come here to the US, we're seeing that this whole thing about co-brands, transfer miles. I mean, it's a huge game. It's a huge business and value to be captured. To Peter's point, I mean, if you look at the certain regions like Europe, I mean, this economics looks completely different, and the value you can capture for this business is very different. Yeah. I think when we look at overall the co-brands here in the US, you could feel it's an entire business model that is very much propelled by data, and it's not just like another partnership. So very often, if you're in some other regions, but especially Europe, where the airlines are launching the co-brand card, well, it's just another partnership that can top up a little bit your balance, but really, can you derive as a member value out of that? It's a little bit challenging. So I mean, I think the major probably industry hiccup about the transfer programs, co-brand not that much, because co-brand builds a certain affinity between the brands, certain exclusivity, but the transfer programs are really driven around the liquidity of the mile. So I mean, there is I think to Paul's Smith's point, there is certain magic behind that mile that is not really defined what you can get for that. I mean, to what brands, I mean, it gives you access to. I mean, to some extent, transfer programs are making the mile that liquid that it becomes a form of a token. You can call it a form of a cash. And that's probably, airlines, I'm not surprised, they're taking advantage of that because you've got a greatest product on the redemption side. I mean, but I believe they're from a different perspective. I think it's there is some value being lost by banks even, or by retailers if they're doing those transfers. So it's going to be interesting how, especially here in Latin America, these transfer programs will evolve, because effectively it's a high circulation. There's a lot of value being moved between the programs without building any affinity to a particular brand. So I think that's the element that will be kind of investigated by the brands who are contributors to balance sheets. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think we often get caught up on what could be revenue leakage, but really, brands need to all think about loyalty leakage, and things are really ideally over time, over a lifetime, not just transactional, to optimize the value.
Yeah.
I could just add a little, maybe just some more context around our business to that. It's just interesting because we transfer a lot of miles in from the banks and other programs, and actually for the U.S. in particular, we transfer more miles into our program than are earned by French members flying on Air France. I mean, that's how much scale there is with this. So we are constantly looking at this data to see what kind of loyalty value it's driving. And I could say this: there are a whole bunch of members that are just they're transferring in or taking a redemption. But there's a whole bunch of other members who are doing all sorts of different things with it. So it's really quite interesting to see how much value this is creating for our business.
So thank you. I'd like to have a couple questions now about the customers themselves and what you observe, including you, Peter, from the technical side with your clients. Are you seeing behavioral differences in terms of engagement from those who are direct accruers of the currency, so in this case, Rove and Air France Flying Blue, or those who transfer? Do you see anything different about them relative to those who are organically accruing the currency? This may not be as germane to you as it would be Air France.
It depends. There's lots of different segments in here. I used to think when I first started looking at this that you're either in two camps. You just transfer in and you're sort of like a mileage optimizer in our program, and then there's another camp of truly loyal flyers. But the fact is that it's not so cut and dry. That there are very frequent flyers of ours, tiered members, who also transfer in. So there's really not an easy answer here. It's just the challenge for us is to understand the data. And honestly, I wish I could say we cracked it and I could be really inspirational about this, but this is a work in progress for us, and this is where the magic will come in.
It always will be.
I believe there is a difference in engagement if you compare I mean, you can call it net accrued miles within the program and a transfer. So, I mean, if we would be sitting, I mean, as an example, in Sao Paulo here today, and if I would have any credit card with let's say, largest bank there, let's say Itaú Bank, I could just go and transfer my miles to Latam Pass, I could transfer it to Gold Smiles, and I could transfer it to the Azul and some other programs. So effectively, you know, the way the transfer would work would be exactly very comparable behavior as I would be booking basically a revenue ticket. I would go by, potentially to some extent, by price and convenience, so it will be very much itinerary driven, then actually driven by the affinity to the particular brand. So the liquidity that we mentioned at the beginning basically drives people to, when I transfer, I effectively book a revenue ticket with my digital currency, which is mile earned in a third-party program. So I think there's a completely different level of engagement from those who are transferring compared to those who are, I mean, originally earning within its own program.
Yeah, that would have been my hypothesis. I don't have my own first order observations. American wasn't involved with this when I was there, so I don't know, and I'm really genuinely curious about that. What about demographics? Do we see that all demographics, and I know we got a bit of bias, and you're a population of young, Gen Z, but again, all three of you, do you see any sort of bias demographics preferring to transfer versus organically accruing?
I could start. We see a lot of different things from depending on which program they're coming in from, to be honest. I mean, Bilt looks a lot different than American Express membership rewards, and for obvious reasons. You know, and I think that's part of the beauty of this for us anyway. It just brings all sorts of different kinds of customers, different characteristics to our franchise. So
you would suggest all demographics are interested in transferability?
We don't discriminate. Yes, and I'll pick on Bilt for a second because it's one of my favorite programs. I'm a Bilt member myself, and I've got their card, and you know they're doing great things, and they're just it's bringing in a whole new type of customer to our friends KLM that we wouldn't have seen otherwise without these kinds of programs. That's
a great point. A customer you may have never seen in the absence of having that as a partner.
As far as Rove goes, we have two very distinct demographics, and they are at the opposite end of the spectrum from each other. We do have the majority of our user base is skews younger. It's Gen Z, and those types of users, not necessarily for accrual, but for redemptions, they tend to be, because they're younger, they're not as experienced with travel. They tend to be willing to earn and redeem within our portal, both on flights and hotels. That's one half of them. The rest of our users are very hardcore loyalty enthusiasts. These are like the points guy, frequent miler, boarding area, just me, basically. These kinds of people are really deep into loyalty, and they understand the value of what Rove is offering. And sometimes they'll be sort of redeeming within Rove because we do offer some really great values, especially with hotel redemptions. But for the most part, they're preferring the transfer partners. They're viewing Rove as an additional way to get rewards where maybe they've locked out of credit card bonuses, or they don't have another way to earn lots and lots of the transferable rewards they would like to have.
Fair enough. Peter, this is going to be for you. Have you seen any sort of disruptive approaches to driving mile transfers?
Yeah, so I mentioned Brazil already. Like there we're having like basically there is no build affinity to the particular programs. The miles are flowing freely between the programs. I mean, one of the disruptive, I would say, initiatives that we've seen in the market, and I really recommend everyone to look at the Azul Airways, how they're trying to fight for that incoming and secure the incoming flow of miles points from bank programs. I mean, they've launched something that is called frozen redemption, which basically means you don't have to have enough miles on your account. You can pre-book your redemption ticket, and it can be a year before the flight really happens. And you need to accrue those points up to the moment when you're flying. Typically, you would just assume, okay, I would accrue it through my flight activity and so on. But actually, this whole thing is built to, assure that once you are having those points on the bank, on a credit card in a bank of any choice in Brazil, you're going to transfer it to Azul to make your flight happen. If you are not able to make it before a few days before departure, basically the flight is canceled. So that a little bit shows how like a game really is being played in the market. because you can top up that account into the Azul from various bank accounts, right? So you can top it up from 5 different cards. So that's kind of an interesting, how players are trying to build a kind of a magnitude effect, like a gravity effect to the program. So I would mention this as something that is really like outstanding in the market, never seen anywhere else.
Well, I certainly look forward to more kind of disruptions too on how this space evolves. Is there any sort of roadblocks that you see though on these highly valued co-brand cards from the tech side?
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. I think the biggest difference between a high valued co-brand partnerships is arising from the fact how the issuers are looking at the co-brand business overall. So we're seeing, especially here in the US, if we take Barclays, if we take Amex, they are giving so much thought to it. They're seeing it as a kind of a data exchange, really, business where for data exchange they're able to better personalize the whole experience and capture value out of that. And I think that's the situation where you've got, from a tech perspective, all parties prepared to work together. You do have cases where, co-brand is just one side like a sided operation. It's just another partner you connect. And that typically is a situation where, yes, you see the challenges around willingness to share data, the depth of the data that's being shared. So if you take European example, typically the operator of the program cannot capture even the product category from the co-brand transaction. It just goes down to the, international and domestic transactions aggregated per month, yeah? So I think their technology itself is not a challenge. I think it's more of a DNA of how these co-brands are being really enabled. And that drives then, how it translates to receiving data, exchanging data, and personalizing then the both propositions of the bank and of the issuer and of the airline toward the member. So that would be my take.
So I think we're getting close on time. So I'd like to kind of get to one point that I think would be helpful for the audience to hear. And each of you, please respond. Lessons learned. What might you do differently? What are you super excited that's working almost as originally designed? Something that just reflects time in market and observations and conclusions.
Sure. I guess I'll start. Takes differentiation with the co-brand. So that's a lesson we learned early on. We're working through that now. How do we make our co-brand all the more compelling? Just versus why not just have a Capital One card or whatever card, just transfer into Flying Blue. But maybe the second part is equally and probably the most important. It really does require a strong program. Earning points and transfer it's easy. It's just like delivering on that value is the real challenge. And I guess I'm proud of all the work that we're doing. At Flying Blue, we won a great award last night. I don't know if you all saw, but Point.me ranked us #1, second year in a row.
Congratulations.
And, just for the value that we bring to the consumer. So,
great. Carissa.
I think in terms of success, we can really point to the fact that we're so young and we already have the 12 transfer partners. I do think that going forward, we might have a little bit fewer or more struggles with that. I think as a takeaway, I probably would have wanted to secure more before we went public. But yeah, so far so good. Obviously with the growth that we've seen, we're doing something right.
So not asking for anything commercially sensitive, but our expectations are a whole lot more to come, right?
Yeah.
In general, right? Not just in transfer partners.
No, absolutely. I said, we're not going to end up with any sort of co-branded credit card, but you can see lots and lots of things we have on the roadmap. We are debuting, loyalty eligible hotel bookings, which means why would you want to book direct when you can score your Rove miles in addition to your hotel points, in addition to your credit card points. So that's something that we're going to be doing. We also have, like I said, the card linked offers, and we have a sort of FHR, American Express Fine Hotels and Resorts, or Chase the Edit-esque program, which mimics hotel elite status benefits at luxury hotels. So we have a lot of things that are coming and coming out in addition to more transfer partners. We have a lot planned.
Great, thank you. So Peter, any lessons learned that for you can share with the audience?
Very briefly, like maybe it's not the lessons learned, but more like a thought for the future. When we look at the different markets, we're seeing there is a very different pressure on how lucrative the payment business is. Here, it's extremely lucrative. In Europe, we know it's not existent. We can say the payments became a so-called democratized to an extent that it's a right for payment and it's free of charge. That's how the regulators in Europe really created a business. So I think as a kind of a contingency, I mean, I believe it would be really interesting to look at what would have happened if models from other regions in the world would be replicated over here in the United States. How these programs that we are all engaging with here, that you are managing here, how they would look like if either there will be value of the business of co-brand reduced or not existent to an extent as in Europe. And I think we covered that in a few conferences. I mean, we're living here in the region, in Latin America and Middle East, in a luxury kind of the high interchange rate for which we are capturing so much value and we're making the programs extremely relevant to members. But I think even if that stays, I think there is beyond co-brand, there is a much more value that can be captured with the banks who are beyond just the card, selling a lot of the high margin products for which they're not rewarding their customers at all. Just because the credit card is sticky enough for the client. So I think that's something I would look at, how to go beyond the card swiping, how to make it rewardable, how to make it also profitable for banks, because if you have a mortgage, currency exchange, insurance, and all of that, these are very high margin products for which we're not being rewarded. And maybe one day that will be the critical factor to build a stickiness with the issuer, for the bank, than actually the card, if the, let's say, European model to an extent is replicated.
Great. Those are all great answers. Thank you so much. I want to just see if there's any quick questions for the panel. Yes.
I'll scream, I guess. Piotr, thank you so much. Very interesting example on Azul. And I just wanted to touch your brain on some of the things we're seeing with Middle Eastern members of Rove. So Emirates evaluated recently. We definitely see devaluation across the Europe and US. So your mention about Azul's kind of freezing of the miles was indicating that it's coming from the competition for all of this, between different mile programs. So there's like competition within the Brazilian market. What it seems to be happening from the devaluation side, there is shortage of inventory that all of the largest airlines are telling me. And the devaluations partially and predominantly happened because they couldn't simply provide enough of the rewards tickets and places in 2004 and 2005. So do you think this innovation is driven externally from the competition between the loyalty program, or is driven internally from the lack of inventory for the reward seats?
I think one of the probably mental change for which the airlines have gone was that redemption is not anymore a free ticket. It can be considered as a revenue ticket to an extent. So pretty much, if you have a model like in Brazil, where you're transferring points, miles into the program, which is direct revenue into the program first, and then if it's redeemed on the inventory, it's considered as a direct revenue for an airline. So from this perspective, I think depending on of course on a particular airline, we kind of went through that even point where actually redemption was something that was not necessarily desired by revenue management teams. So if we look at the example of Azul, or any other airline there in the region, I think, and if anyone has more knowledge about the availability itself, it would be great to hear. But I believe they have an appetite to actually provide as much inventory as possible for redemption, because it's nothing different than a revenue ticket paid by different currency. So I believe that's a part of the business model and the mindset that has changed. Yeah. In comparison to what we had a kind of a decade ago, where we operated in that very restricted inventory, few classes available for redemption. I think that's something that really changed. And to that point, when you've got a model of a dynamic redemption, where basically redemption value in points is correlation to the it's a ratio between the dollar value and the point, you are effectively very often selling those flights at the commercial fare, just converted to the value of points. So I think we passed that to the great extent treating redemption as something that is obligation, but it's actually a desired business.
So thank you. Thank you, Peter, Carissa, and Peter for this engagement today, and David for the opportunity.
Let's hear it up.
Thank you.
Thank you.